Hey, folks. I would ask what we're drinking tonight, but I think it's much better if we describe what we're wearing tonight. So I'm wearing a hoodie. James Bailey, how many branded clothing items are you wearing?
Well, seeing as I was told that as we're on like a Zoom video call, even though our listeners will not be able to see anything, I was told that if I wore my Zwift branded hoodie, I would have my video turned off. So I have a jumper on and a Zwift t-shirt underneath the jumper.
Becca, how about you?
Seeing as last time we did a Zoom call, you told me I looked like I'd forgotten to take the bins out, and so I chucked things on over my pajamas. I actually put a decent sweatshirt on. I didn't get mocked again.
What's really terrible is you still have somehow managed to look to me like I look when I've forgotten to take the bins out, and I just pick the warmest pair of clothes to put on over my pajamas to take the bins.
I'm comfortable all the time.
Craig, you're looking very dapper.
I was at work and now I'm not, but I haven't changed.
Craig is wearing a shirt for fans of attire and is drinking a beer. I have also drunk much wine, which many of you will have gathered by now. Chris, you've got a great hat on.
It's Christmas time now. We've got the Santa hat.
It is a strong Santa hat. It's like that time you log into Zwift and they make you ride in a shit bike that some people love. So I'm on the lovers side of this. I'm loving your hat at this moment. I'm not saying bar humbug. It's November and we're not allowed Christmas hats yet. And Brent, I've left you till last. When I joined the call, I just laughed for about 30 seconds when I saw your top. So
this is my hoodie. It's a rainbow unicorn hoodie.
Love it.
It is
featuring my rainbow unicorn spirit animal.
It's every bit as splendiferous as that description makes it sound.
I think we should note that we haven't had the herd of unicorns with TTT for quite a while.
Have we not?
No, definitely needs to come back.
I mean, I'd rather the herd of unicorns than the herd of man buns or whatever it was that got vetoed.
It was the lesser spotted man buns. And I think that Brent should at least allow one of them to borrow his hoodie and race in it at the same time. It might be wrong, but for entertainment factor, it would be incredible.
I think that might actually be a health risk because I can tell you right now, sitting in this thing, I'm like actually almost as sweaty as I am on my bike. So if I was like riding my bike in this thing, I might literally expire from dehydration.
You could go outside, Brent.
I might have to suggest this to my local cycling club. So we're about to embark on the 12 climbs of Christmas around the Cotswolds. And apparently someone last year did them all dressed as Santa, which was similarly sweaty. So I might suggest someone has to do it dressed as a unicorn and send your picture over, Brent. But anyway, this kind of waffle is why we have very few listeners. But let's talk about Zwift. James Bailey, should we start with what's coming up on the Herd Racing League this weekend?
Oh, Steve, are you just like messing around with the schedule just to screw with my head?
Yeah.
I was not prepared for this at all. So this weekend, starting off with the Herd Winter Racing League, we have a single lap of the Kappa Quest route in the Bikini Islands. On Sunday and Monday, we have the Herd of Mountain Goats, which is a custom distance Actobahn route, which is 9.0 kilometers, which basically takes you up the reverse Innsbruck KOM. On Sunday and Monday again, we have the Stampede, which is a Snorfest. It is 2 laps of Tempest Fugit. Oh dear God. On Wednesday, we have 8 laps of the Queen's Highway in Yorkshire. And in our women's racing events, we have 16.1 kilometers or 10 miles of Tempest Fugit in the women's time trial series. And in the Herd series on Tuesday, we have a single lap of Greater London Flat. The end.
I don't know why I don't know why you do many things, James, but I don't know why you describe Tempest as a Snorfest. I mean, there are many kind of 1 hour Netflix shows that we could all watch while sat on our bikes and doing this time trial. It's almost the perfect length for that. I can recommend many Star Trek TNG episodes that last 45 minutes as well for those of us that are in a category and want something to watch. That's also on Netflix. One for the bike change, perhaps?
What, Tempest Future?
Let's talk about Kappa Quest. That looks like a cool route, though, for the ride that happened today. Such a thing. Brent, did you ride it earlier?
I did. I took the gravel bike. Despite the fact that Chris and a number of other riders absolutely dusted me in this race. I don't know. I'm having some combination of fitness and trainer issues, but I still think it was the right one. I mean, it's just, pedal to the bottom of the climb for 5.5 to 8 minutes, stay with your group down the other side, and then try and do it again for another 7.5 minutes back up to the top. So have fun.
Yeah, so just quickly on the route. So it is billed as a single lap of Kappa Quest, but it's actually quite a long lead in because you have to get to the top of the hill and through the KOM banner before the lap actually starts. So there are 2 climbs and it's a summit finish. And who doesn't love a summit finish?
We know James loves a summit finish.
Well, in some way, we made 2 laps of Tempest sound more fun than whatever that's happening with Kappa. Brent, you were definitely, just pedal a bit and then you go up a climb and then you pedal a bit. Like, wasn't even a train mentioned. Right? So how have you made this ride less interesting than Tempest, James?
Let's be fair. There are no routes in all 6 or 7 worlds that are less interesting than Tempest Future.
I give you Von Top.
No. Even Von Top's more interesting than Tempest Future.
In fact, I don't know. There is a train on Tempest. There's a train on Von Top.
There is a level of gradient variation on Von Top.
At one point, it goes from 14% to 13% in that 1 kilometer that goes in a dead straight line that seems to last forever.
Tempest Fusion has the Oasis climb. I don't know what you're complaining about.
It's got the roundabout as well. I mean, we all know how much I enjoyed going around that roundabout, James.
How many times was it, Steve? Did you go round the roundabout 8 times?
I think I managed
unintentionally.
Genuinely managed 3 trying to change route. That genuinely, without exaggeration, 3 times around that roundabout trying to change route and failing miserably.
I remember Becca and I were doing some route, and I told her to make sure she turned right at a roundabout, and I promptly turned left.
It's easily done. It's always what I'm learning from that. So. I think we'd normally talk about ZRL in this space, but there's I know nothing about ZRL. It's the playoffs this weekend, next weekend. When are the playoffs out? I'm really confused by ZRL and when the playoffs are happening.
We're in the middle of the playoffs.
Yeah. 4th of December is the second part of the playoffs. Craig, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's Innsbruck KOM after party. So you've got 3 laps of the Innsbruck ring before you turn off and do the KOM. It's a great course. It's just a shame it wasn't in the actual ZRL, and they've left the only hilly route in the entire season to part of the season that most people can't take part in.
It is a genuinely great course, this, isn't it? I think I prefer this to the Innsbruck summit finish you did in HRL, James. Actually, I quite enjoy the kind of brutality of the 1 minute plus sprint, which is the leg snapper. Doing that 3 times and then thinking I've got a whole 20-minute climb to come.
I was thinking, like, when you said, like, when you started talking about 1 minute sprint, I thought you were talking about the uphill sprint that you actually get points for, and that's what I think about 300 meters. That feels like 500 at least.
That's because you have to start 200 meters before it to get,
and then it's uphill.
Yes.
So yeah, and then we've got loads of teams riding still in this. I saw Marilyne's Penguins were mentioned.
We have 8.
Were featured this week, weren't they, as well, weren't they?
No,
we had 11 teams qualify. I know at least, I think 1 or 2 teams weren't able to get teams together for the playoffs. So I think we're at 9 or 10 between the mixed and women's.
That's
and I realized
impressive.
we missed a really important part of the show, which is where I say something stupid about bike choice. But Kappa Quest, it's just the gravel bike. There isn't really. It's like saying, what bike am I going to ride on Tempest? It's just your best aero TT bike. There just isn't a choice. So yeah, that's why we skipped over that bit.
We should say Chris did well on the Pink Tron today.
No way.
Oh, no, I was on a gravel bike.
Were you? I could have sworn you were on Pink Tron.
That was a pen change, so maybe you didn't see it. But
Oh, I hate that. That's the second time this week that's happened to me.
yeah, no, it was definitely a Canyon Grail, because when in doubt, just always pick a Canyon Grail now.
All right, I feel slightly less worse about how bad you beat me.
I was going to say, does that make you feel better that you were stomped all over?
The one other thing I'd say about Kappa Quest is the finish. You should make your move at the like 7% grade change. There's like when you get to the top, there's a section of the bridge where it goes up to like 7, 8. I think even maybe at one point hits 10%, and then it flattens out before you hit the finish. So if you're going to make your move, make it about 800 meters from the end. There's the steep bit. And then if you make it there, you should be able to cover the difference. Because I know today some guys I was racing against, in the 40th range. I dusted them on that climb and they never made up the 4 seconds. So I managed my James Hulk impression there.
That's where I saved my match, was for those last 2 final ramps, and I made up 2 more spots. So good call on that, Brent.
Yep.
We haven't talked about alcohol, and we've been like chatting for at least 10 minutes. How has this even happened? as Chris necks some whiskey.
It partly does how much alcohol I've already consumed.
No, I guess I will say I specially selected a beer for today with a Roman Candle IPA in celebration of the new job.
Plural, actually. I have a bottle of Buenos Vides Malbec, which is quite nice.
I had a bottle of Cabernet Sauvignon. It's gone now.
Becca, are you drinking tea?
Yeah, as Marmot Chat will know, last week I drank for the first time in 6 months and had the world's worst hangover last Saturday. So that's put me off alcohol for another 6 months.
Was it genuinely the world's worst hangover though, Becca? Because you've been a student. I reckon you've rocked a few like 12-hour hangovers.
It feels a lot worse at 30 than it did at 21.
Yeah, wait till 40.
I was going to say, we got some bad news for you.
It's when they start impinging like 2 days later. It's just no fun anymore.
HWR helped me get through today's hangover, so I blew through that, and then we're re-implementing it with 1792 full proof. It's a single barrel pick from somebody. Somebody gave me this bottle a little bit ago, and I've never tried it, so we're doing it tonight in honor. It's
a very, very nice color as well. That.
I've got an inexpensive Malbec, James Special.
Yay!
And that's from the west end of Lidl as well, is it? Or
look, it's never been from Lidl.
And that's the joke.
Lidl is 5 miles away. Aldi is 0.5.
Oh dear. So one thing I sort of suggested in our chat earlier on that we talk about is last week you spoke a bit about Neokyo, which is kind of day 1 Neokyo. Now we're I'm going to call it 7, but it's really day 8. I don't know. Anyway, we're a week later. Have any of you ridden Neokyo? What do you think about it now? How are we feeling about it?
Steve, when did we do our big ride? That was like
Friday.
Yeah. So you weren't around for Pink Tron last week. So why don't you give us your experience of how Neokyo was for you? Perhaps focus more on the earlier ones rather than what happened at the end.
Yeah, at the end, I was loving life in Zwift and teaching James new ways to string various swear words together. I really like it.
I do.
But then, so I had to listen to Zwiftcast this week. It's another podcast. It comes out sporadically, but it has people from Zwift on who did big stuff. So Eric Slangy was on there talking about Neokyo as well. And he said apparently a lot of people don't like the kind of future modern otherworldly stuff. They kind of like the outdoorsy stuff. And I have to declare my bias. I've said it before. I really like, and I would like Zwift more to play with reality, to go, look, we're not RGT, or we're not one of these hyper real reproductions of cycling. We're going to play a bit of reality. And for me, that would be geography. So it'd be like, can I descend von top and immediately hit like one of the cobbled sections from Paris-Roubaix, and then hit one of the Meuse in Flanders, and kind of like, can we bring that geography close together? So with that all in mind, I really like Neokyo. It's a bit mad. It really, having been to South Korea, it really hit that kind of just mad otherworldliness that I found visiting South Korea and kind of Southeast Asia as a region like that. I think I was East Asia anyway. That's that kind of region. Visually, it's insane. It's bonkers. There's so much detail. Like, we were spotting like floating octopuses and cats playing like games, and then people playing Zwift in the arcade on Tron bikes. There's just so much detail in there. So yeah, it's really cool. I didn't really like the routes that went out to, and actually it was because I was tired later on. But now reflecting on it, I didn't really like them as routes. The routes that went out into Makuri in a bit more wilder. I like the routes there more. I like the Neokyo routes. So yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, I think I definitely prefer the Neokyo routes to the Yumesi ones. But I do like that you've almost got two worlds that are interlinked, which you don't have with any of the other ones. And I really love the race potential for a lot of the Yumesi routes. So you've got Sprinters Playground, which is 12 kilometers, has 4 sprints in it. Amazing for points races. You've got Rooftop Rendezvous, which is 3.8k, has a KOM halfway through the lap, chuck in 6 laps. Bullseye is going to be absolutely epic.
You could. I was thinking this in the week, James. You could almost run an entire season of the Bullseye.
Oh God, yeah.
On those routes, forwards and backwards.
I could run 4 of our series entirely in Yumesi, or entirely Makuri, because I'd probably chuck in Temples and whatever the rest of the name is. The one that you hated.
Actually, the first of the 2 we did.
Yeah.
I hated less, which was the climby one, actually.
Yeah,
the one that was flat.
It was more interesting. I mean, the one we did at the end was called something flats, but wasn't flat, and had probably like an average gradient of about 5% for the last 5 kilometers. Yeah, I wasn't such a fan of that.
I did tell a 3% gradient to fuck right off at one point.
yes, you did, and you called it other names as well. But having said that,
it took a while.
I think after Yumesi got launched, and I think a lot of those routes were probably mediocre. There's a couple of climbs in there, but you can do so much in Neokyo race-wise, especially points-wise. Like we've mentioned a couple of them already. But yeah, there's lots of potential in there.
And I don't want to echo Zwiftcast too much, but I thought Eric made 2 really good points on that, which is, one is how complete the world now feels. And it looks like there's a potential. It looks like they might add Fuji on, because there's that bridge you cycle to that's closed off at the moment. And his point was, it feels like the most complete world since London has landed. Like, you've got the flat areas, you've got the climby areas, the 2 link together really neatly. And also it's quite big. Like in terms of like, so once you've done France, I'm kind of done with. Like, once there's sort of 2 ways around France, and then there's Von Top, which takes forever. That's kind of France done. It's not like you can do France and into Paris like you can do with London through the tunnel. Richmond, I love Richmond. Like, Richmond has a special place in my heart. I love it as a race course, but it's really quite limited in terms of number of tracks there. So Wildtopia is where it's at, really, isn't it? That's got so much real estate. It's got so many roads, and if they do the same with Makuri, like with more roads there happening there as well, it will be amazing.
Yeah, I think if you look at, say, Mercury, London, and Watopia, you've got the variation on there. You've got flat courses, you've got hilly courses, and they're just bigger. Whereas if you look at New York, Richmond, Innsbruck, and Yorkshire, they're all very sort of one-dimensional. You've basically got 20k in a loop, and not a lot else you can actually do. Sure, New York's got like probably about 9-10 routes that do different parts of the 20 kilometers roads. But yeah, Mercury has always been hyped as the second hub world. In the same way Watopia is a hub world, they'll continue to add bits and pieces to it. In the same way they have been doing to Mercury. And I would imagine the next step is to stick in a decent climb, hopefully Mount Fuji, and hopefully not before too long, but we'll certainly see how that one plays out. But yeah, I completely agree. Mercury is very quickly becoming the second world in Zwift.
And I think, as I said, on Zwift Cross, what they nail is this feel of riding through a city. Like, it's with New York, it very much feels like playing a racing game of the 90s, where, like, you know, the background's kind of gently scrolling and like it's just the track that's moving left and right, and it kind of it's quite a divorced feel for it. I think you could take away the back. Like, I wouldn't know I was in New York. I don't know Central Park. Like, I wouldn't know that as a course.
I will say, Steve, I've played a one of the real simulation cycling games, the Kino maps, and done the Central Park loop, and it is so much the same, but it just feels so different.
No, this is what I've heard. If you know Central Park, like, Zwift blows your mind. Like, it's great. It's such a cool course, and you've got the ramps, but you don't have that feel of, like, wouldn't it be cool if you could ride out of the park and kind of around the city for a bit, around a few blocks or something like that? That would be the kind of, like, how would I feel like I'm in New York a bit more and get that feel? So
yeah, if you get hit by a car, then you'll feel like you're there.
There is that bit. So there is the one bit that we mentioned doing the ride, James, where you ride through a market and it's done with a few curves in, but you do feel like you're going to crash into people at times. It is confusing. I did pick up on one of the forums that there's frame rate issues as well for some people. I can't say we noticed that.
I haven't seen any of. To be perfectly fair, the forums have picked up on quite a few issues, and there are a lot of people that really don't like Neokyo at all. I love it. I love the brightness. I love the like everything that's going on. I love the changes in gradient, the like mini com. It's really good fun.
In terms of, I mean, this is a good straw poll actually, because we could be preaching to the choir. So I guess, like, if we were, I was going to say a show of hands, but that was really poorly as a podcast. But if we were to do a kind of a cry of yes, like, how realistic do you want your cycling on Zwift to be? If we went, like, say, who would want it more realistic? Nobody has said yes at this point.
I think it's a good balance. We've got the fantasy worlds, right? You've got Watopia, while not a real place, mimics a lot of real world things. So we've got the choice now, and I think that's all we can ask for. One thing I will say about Neokyo, and I haven't listened to Zwiftcast yet, so I'm not sure if Eric has already run these tests, but I'm curious to see if there is a shift in rolling resistance on a chewing gum soaked carpet in the arcade. Like, is that an opportunity?
That would be cool.
Bike change? Do we bike change on the arcade? These are legitimate questions, and I think we need to turn to Eric for these answers if he has not already considered it.
And can we play with, like, the power-ups as well? So actually you have a I don't know, some like David Beckham or someone, like some mega celebrity appears and like loads of autograph hunters crowd around them. So like if you deploy the David Beckham power up, it slows everyone else down, but you can speed away.
You could paparazzi people, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's basically the burrito, isn't it? But let's give it a new name.
Did they change the sound effects as well for Neokyo, or did I just finally turn up the volume on my?
I haven't had the volume on Zwift since
Yeah.
I first sat in the
Me
pen
neither.
and somebody kept
Okay.
pressing the thumbs up button, thinking
I
they were giving
haven't had
guidance.
I haven't had volume turned on Zwift since about 2019.
Right on. Sorry.
I for what it's worth, I think it's great. I love when they experiment with stuff like this. I think it's way more interesting than just another forest. Like, I'm sorry, no offense to Japanese trees, but the Japanese trees look a lot like the French trees, look a lot like the fake Watopia trees, look a lot like the Titans Grove trees. Like,
Well, when you
they-
make whiskey
they-
barrels out of them, they make very different expressions. So Mizunara oak and French oak are very different.
Well, I didn't say they didn't taste different, Chris. But I love stuff like this. The only thing, like, I haven't written all the routes or everything in Neokyo, but I'm a little worried about landmarking in there. Like, I was riding around thinking, how am I going to know where the hell anything is? Like, I don't know where the turn is. I don't know where the finish is. Like, oh, the finish of this thing is at the arch at the arcade. Oh, I can't even see where that is for now, but okay, that's the end. So, I mean, maybe that'll be fun. Maybe that'll be frustrating, but I'm perfectly happy for them to experiment with this stuff. I mean, the first time I ran through the arcade, I was 100% sold. I was like, yep, give me all this.
I think that would be interesting with your new role, James, is to know how much this has been designed for steering, because it feels like there's a lot of sprints where you come out of a corner. Like Zwift, normally you're sighted for a sprint a long time ahead. There aren't very many, maybe Crit City, where you come out of a bend and you're right into a sprint and you probably need to be well positioned. But it feels like Neokyo, there's a lot of corners where you probably need to be sprinting before the corner for the sprint. There's also the stupidly long sprint, and I'm really looking forward to that, because it's about 3 miles long, isn't it?
Let's be fair, there are no short sprints. I think the shortest was 300 meters, if not 330, and the longest was what,
640 meters.
Yeah, which you know, there are laps that are shorter than that. I mean, it'll take you longer to sprint that than it would do to do a lap of Crit City.
It's and it's going to be fast as well, because we did that both ways, and I think both ways it's like in a little bold. So both ways it's a downhill sprint. That's going to be a tough effort. But yeah, it feels like it's been designed for like steering, which I don't mind. I think they're being playful. As I said, like I'd love to, again, it'd be fascinating in the role you go into, James, as you find out more about this, but just the what drives people to get on their bike and ride in the world that's created by Zwift. And for me, I would want Zwift to double down on the kind of toying with reality. Yes, it has to. I have to feel connected to the game, and that's what Zwift does really well through the smooth avatar graphics that we didn't like so much about RGT. That kind of the lean angles and things are a bit funny. You feel really connected into the game, but I think you can be playful, and things like the glass. I know the glass roads are really controversial, but I really like the glass roads because it's kind of like, this is a cool
glass roads
thing.
are my favorite part. Well, actually, the only part about New York that I enjoy. I really enjoy, and I think the point you're making is absolutely bang on. Zwift is not out to be a perfect simulation. It's not really out to be a simulation at all. It's basically out to be a cycling video game that has levels of realism, but also has a lot of fun in there as well. And going back to like the point you made about RGT, yes, you may well have like stunning graphics on some of your real roads, but seriously, the avatars are god awful. And if I want to like lean into a corner, I'm not going to go like, which no one could see other than people on this Zoom call. But the visual graphics on RGT are fantastic. The concept of Magic Roads also fantastic, but I can't get on with it. Just because of how your actual avatar looks, it just doesn't look. I mean, okay, fair enough. The Zwift avatar isn't real, but it looks and behaves like you'd expect it to. And I completely get that RGT have done clever things in like restricting your speed when you're coming up to a ride or restricting your speed going into a corner, but it just looks wrong.
That's the the fundamental problem with all of these platforms, or the fundamental challenge they face, is that it's not real. If I'm out on my bike, I have so many stimuli coming at me. Like I've got the wind in my face. I can look wherever I want to look in 4K, in 3D. I get instantaneous feedback about what other people are doing. I can hear how hard somebody's breathing. I can hear people change gear. I can feel the effort get harder, which you can to a certain extent. James flaunts some gear at us. But this is the problem. And I think this is why I like what Zwift does, is it kind of goes, hey, we're not going to be hyper real. We are going to gamify a bit. We are going to be a bit playful, and I think that's really cool. Anyway, we love Zwift. It's fun. What else?
We always need to caveat James's opinion on the glass roads with the fact they're all uphill, and James is a known masochist for anything that slants up hills.
I want to find 2019 James and ask his views on New York.
I guarantee 2019 James absolutely despised the glass roads.
Oh, I did. So yeah, Neokyo, looking back on it, I just think it's cool. I think it's been really cool. It's gonna be, I think what I like the most is it's lots of new potential for racers, and I think that was the kind of disappointment with Mercurius. There aren't that many race courses added. There wasn't that much variability we could do. And like you say, if they can add a 20-minute climb in there, that'd be brilliant. So looking forward to it.
I suspect Mount Fuji will take a little bit longer than 20 minutes.
You know what I'm going to say to that. What else do we want to discuss? Is there anything?
Let's do our heroes of the week.
I'm going to have to think about that. So I'm going to go to you first, James.
I'm going to say Stuart Williamson. So Stuart is a member of the Sharks TTT team. Week in, week out, the Sharks talk about how they're going to do pulls, and I've been in this team a few times. We talk about how we're going to do pulls. We're going to do 30 seconds, and Stuart's going to do a minute. And generally, within about 2 minutes, we decide, actually, Stuart, you can just lead us out at 4.7 the whole way round, and we'll try and hang on. And he absolutely loves it. He does it with such good grace, and his enthusiasm and the amount of energy he puts into making sure everyone has a great time is absolutely fantastic. So from me and possibly from Becca as well, big thank you to Stuart.
Who wants to go next?
I'll go next. So anyone who sort of
please disagree with James with me. Fuck you, Stuart. I hate you.
So the Zone 2 lot have all been discussing Mark's School of Flog in the Cookers chat this week, and we shared a few screenshots of how horrible it was, and various other things, FTP increases during workouts, etc., etc. And both Debbie and Lorenique have decided that they actually like the look of all this madness and are going to take it on over Christmas. So those two are my heroes of the week because they're insane.
100% with that one, Becca. Good call.
Craig, you have a whiteboard full of heroes.
So I do have to chime in with Becca that yesterday Lorenique did drop me during the Kukas TTT. So that was well done on her.
She's coming to my A team.
Yes.
No, yeah.
She should be. But my hero of the week is the Frame Fairy. So apparently the Frame Fairy shows up when you loan out your very expensive specialized bike tools, and a nice classic steel frame showed up in my cubicle when I showed up at work today, so that was nice.
I'll go. I'm gonna nominate Chris Doyle from the Herd of Crows for an absolutely epic, poetic race report. If you haven't read it yet, go read the Herd of Crows race report. It is 100% worth your time.
I genuinely believe that is the greatest race report I've ever read.
No.
Greg disagrees.
Marjolaine's race report that was
Oh god.
All emoticons, yeah.
that was
I haven't
also
read that one.
fantastic. It's brilliant. What route were we doing? Was it TikTok?
Yeah.
Campus. It was 2 hours of
Cactus,
Campus.
train cactus. How can you forget? Oh dear. Chris, how about
I'm
you?
gonna take all these points about race reports that were red though. Red.
Well, I was gonna say my whole Cheetahs TTT team because I captained the team for the first time in the century, it feels like. But I might have to switch my vote and say Brent because I totally forgot to write a race report, and now I'm reminded to do so.
Can we just quickly recap on this amazing Cheetahs performance and go back to the first climb?
Our first, yeah, we were, I don't know who was in charge of pit lane releases, but they sent us out right in front of the Sharks team as they wrapped up their first lap. So we had 16 herd kits going up the KOM together, just bodies everywhere. Nobody knew who to follow. So my Cheetahs were following Sharks. Tim was just hate messaging me, drop, get out of here, Cheetahs. You guys are the worst. I'm like, I don't know where the fuck my people are. Like, it was just chaos.
Funny thing was for Constantine, when we're in the pen, we're like, okay, we're going at 2 minutes. We're aiming for 13-minute laps, and Cheetahs go at 15 minutes.
Yeah, simple
this
back of a
could be
napkin
close.
It was chaos.
Oh god, yeah.
That was fun. And then I would have figured on a 3-lap race with 3 trips up the KOM, there'd be no traffic, but that was the only one where we had any sort of team traffic. Everything else was just clear roads. So good times.
Yeah.
But I do have to write my race report. So thank you for the reminder, Brent.
And I've got 3 very quick heroes. First of all, it is people who paid for this podcast. So some people very kindly donated money that pays the podcast to go on the platform. James and I are going to have to stop doing the podcast for various reasons that will become clear in the future. James has announced his. Good news. I will share mine on it in a less public forum. So I'll put it on the herd page, basically. So that was the first one. The second one is all of you guys who sit on this podcast and drunkenly ramble with me on a Friday night, which is always really good fun and cool. And the third one is people of the herd. I've had a few mental health problems recently. Somebody else was talking about some mental health problems they'd had, and what's been unique and awesome and special has been like people in the herd being really cool and supportive and crazy and awesome. So ride on and moo, you lot. And I'm going to finish there because there's a load of mooing happening in the Zwift box that I've got open, and we need to go and do live comms. I'm going to say good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Hey, everybody.